TT.
This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. All things Cleveland sports with your host, John Suchan.
Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. I'm John, and we have a guest tonight, Bill Petrello. Did I say that right, Bill?
Got it. Beautiful.
Bill is the master of everything. If you are on social media in La La Land, you will know Bill. He follows lots of things with Cleveland sports. He's a writer for Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, who I'm part of that group as well, along with Natalie Turk, other people like Munch Bishop. And Bill is like the center of helping with all of that. He does a bazillion other things. And welcome, Bill, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. How exciting, man. This is great. This is like, I don't know, maybe my 9th or 10th different podcast, and I love it. This is great stuff. You guys all do great work. It's so much better than what we're seeing on the radio now, right? I mean, it really is.
We're
this
just masters. I'm
is
trying
so
to get
much
Munch. I want Munch to come on. I've been, talking to him about it for a couple of years, in our group chats, and he just refuses. He doesn't want anything to do with these podcasts. So, but Bill, I appreciate. Hey, listen, Bill, I know a lot of people might not know completely, but your background, he is a diehard Cleveland fan, and wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your backdrop here. You write now for Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders. You have a lot of good insight on a lot of different areas covering Cleveland sports, but you also cover a lot of other sports like golf and some other things that I want to get into shortly. But give people a little bit of background about where you came from, where you were raised in Cleveland, correct?
Yep. Okay. So, born and raised in St. Anne's Hospital. Born in St. Anne's Hospital in Cleveland Heights.
Yeah.
So, my family are well, not anymore, but my family born and raised in Little Italy.
Yeah.
And so, we kind of started in Cleveland Heights, Little Italy, spent a little bit of time at Mayfield, and then in Mentor, and that's where really I grew up and graduated high school from. And over there played, I played really two main sports when I was a kid. I played baseball because the Indians, now Guardians, they are really my first love in Cleveland sports. It's probably one of the first things that I remember. I remember going to an opening day when it was freezing cold, and we got to stay in the box of Mary Rose Okar. I'll never forget that.
Uh-huh.
And I was greatly appreciated that, and I was always a fan of hers until she had a whole bunch of issues with that's a different story for a politics site.
Uh-huh.
But and then I did play some Pee Wee football, but I got to a point where I was also golfing. So I was golfing, playing football, and I was playing baseball. And I gave up football because it was not a sport that I was excelling at. I knew that. I'm not the fastest of guys. Okay. Right tackle, right guard. They threw me there. We had 4 of the 5 places on the line were all Italians. So that was kind of cool. Our head coach was Italian. Yeah. And so 4 of the 5 positions were Italian.
Now this is at Mentor.
Well, this is Pee Wee High School, but
okay.
When I got to the high school, then I decided I was either going to play golf or I was going to play baseball. I decided to do golf, and it's turned into just kind of a love affair of mine, and it's one of the things I enjoy writing about too. So after I graduated from Mentor, went to won my first golf tournament, won an only golf tournament, a junior tournament. Thank you. Right before we went to Miami, right before it was freshman year at Miami. And I'm like, man, do I want to bring my clubs with me? I'm sitting here thinking. And then we went down there for check-in, and I didn't have my clubs with me, but I bumped into one of the guys who was our number 1 golfer when I was a junior at Mentor. And he was trying to make it on the team, and he was a much better golfer than me. And he's like, I don't think I'm going to make it on. He goes, I got to play 3 straight weeks, and I'm playing 18 holes a day, and I got to play 36 on Sunday. I'm like, no, my golf career is over.
Oh my God. Oh my
So
gosh.
spent 4 years at Miami and just absolutely loved it. Oxford is still a really important place for my wife and I. It's where we met.
Okay.
All my boys, it's like one of the first college experiences for all my boys, going, whether it's to watch basketball, whether it's to watch football.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
went to Miami at the time when Ron Harper was there. So I
Oh
was,
yeah.
I was
Oh.
so lucky to be there at that time because, funny story, I got to meet him uptown once.
Okay.
So it seems
This
like
is
we're going to
what,
tell some stories.
1980,
So,
what is it, 83,
so
84,
this would have
85?
been
What is it?
80, 85, 86.
85,
Okay.
86. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the starting point guard on the team um, went to Toledo St. John's and ran track and
Right.
field and was
I
a
know
state
Toledo.
champion.
I was born in Toledo. I lived there
Oh,
till
were
I
you
was
really?
8. So I know a little bit
Oh,
about
cool.
Toledo. Yeah.
Okay. So he played point guard for Miami, and
Okay.
he and Harper were really good friends.
Okay.
One of my good friends at Miami ran track against him up in Toledo. So my buddy and Harper's friend were
Yeah.
really good friends in high school. They were, competitors for
Uh-huh.
baseball. They were competitors for basketball, but they were
Uh-huh.
big in track. These guys finished like 1, 2 in the state and did the two different hurdle things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were uptown and they just came walking over and my buddy's like, hey, you want to meet Harper? I'm like, oh,
What?
and
Yeah.
and then I know, Harper looked at me like, who are you? And I get
Yeah.
it. I totally get it. I'm like, hey, this awesome. Love watching him play. He's still my favorite Cavalier. Right? He's
Right.
he's he
Absolutely.
is
I remember
still
that. Yeah.
still my
86,
favorite
right?
Cavalier.
1986, you said?
Oh yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
think about that. You think about that draft. We got Harper, Doherty, and then Mark Price. That's
Oh
still to
yeah.
me
Oh.
one of the greatest. But if I look back at my fandom for Cleveland sports, it has always been Indians number one. That's the first thing I can remember. But the second thing I remember is the amount of times I would listen to Cavaliers games when they were on the West Coast. So I turned my little Brownie
Yeah.
transistor radio on next to my
Yeah.
bed, and I would listen to the games.
Joe
And
Tate,
my
right?
oh
Was he
yeah,
doing?
and my
Yeah.
father would sit down next to me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, they're playing the Warriors, Dad." He's like, "Okay." And the Browns were actually number three. So my pecking order was Indians, Cavaliers, Browns. It was always like that, which is kind of weird, because it's not like that way for a lot of people. Now, don't get me wrong. We're Italian
No.
family.
Yeah.
Sundays for us was a religion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything we did, you went to mass in the morning,
Yep.
like at 9:30, because by 10:30 you wanted to have the sauce on so it would be ready by halftime so that you can eat at halftime of the Browns game.
Right.
That was it.
I
That's
love
that's
it.
what we did. That's what we did.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
That's
I
fantastic.
after I graduated Miami, met my
How?
wife there.
Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
to Akron. I was in Akron for 2 years. I worked at O'Neill's, which is May department store,
Yeah.
and
How did
then came back down here to Dayton.
so? All right. So Michigan, that state up north, the school, won the big championship last night. I know you're a
Yeah.
big fan of Michigan, so tell people what's that connection?
Okay. So, true story. So when I was a little kid, you have to remember there was a time when the NCAA limited the exposure of football teams on television because they wanted to make sure everybody got on.
Yeah.
So there was a game. It was Michigan and Notre Dame. Big Catholic family, so big Notre
Yes.
Dame fans. Um, and I was a kid, and I went to my mother and I said, "Oh, who is that team?" Because they had the coolest helmets, the blue, and then the
Yeah.
yellow. That
Yeah.
that's the Wolverine scratch.
Yeah.
And my mother's like, "Well, that's the University of Michigan." I'm like, they have the coolest helmets.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, as
That was
crazy as that
it.
was,
That
that
was
was
it.
it. So, it's funny because I have four boys, and they're all older
Yeah.
with wives and two
Yeah.
of them are still kind of young and now.
Yeah.
But it's amazing what you don't remember when you're a little kid,
Yeah.
right? And so, but it's just one of those things that I always kind of rooted for them, always liked them. It wasn't that I was anti-Ohio State at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That turned much later. Okay, so when
Okay.
I got to my high school, Mentor High School is like a little mini Ohio State.
Sure.
The
Sure.
colors are the same, the
Right.
songs are the same. Oh my gosh, and then
Yeah.
the majority at the time in 1983, 1984, the majority of the seniors all went to Ohio State. So
Yes.
that was where everybody
Yes.
went to, right?
Yep.
And I'm
I
like,
wanted
my
nothing to
God,
do with Ohio State. I grew up in Worcester. Many people know this, and I mean, I got out of the state. I wanted out of Ohio. I wanted nothing to do with the Buckeyes or any of those. Yeah. So
Well, it's funny. We really couldn't afford to. When I was looking at schools, right?
yeah,
My parents are like, can't afford to go out of state. You got to stay in
yeah,
state. Like,
yeah.
okay, so what's the farthest I can go? Hey, this
Uh-huh.
place. Like,
Miami,
oh, okay.
yes. Yeah.
But it's funny
It's a
because
very
when I
good
was in,
school. Miami was very well,
oh,
and
it's it
I got a
it
chance
still
to. I
is.
think you know this, Bill. I did the NCAA coverage for the MAC tournament on the women's side.
Right.
My daughter used
Oh
to
yeah.
play for Buffalo, so I have
Oh
some
really?
connection
Cool.
there. Yeah, and so it's always neat to go back to Cleveland because for that tournament because I've been going to it for about the last 10 years, and so to get the chance to then interview in Miami, both the men and the women had really good teams, and
Yeah.
I concentrated on the women's teams, but to get to talk to those players and to the Miami coach, um, who actually complimented me on the last question of the press conference after. So that was pretty
Oh,
cool.
very nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah. So no, so I respect what Miami's doing and the new coach down there, especially on the women's side of
Yeah,
things.
he's good.
They've got some good things going on. They're very a lot of these coaches are very confident. That coach is very confident in his abilities and his players, and he's have bought into it. So you basically have become a Michigan fan because you like the helmet,
Yeah.
and um,
And
that's
and my
awesome.
high school would drive me crazy with everything because it's like, my gosh, it's like every day it's like scarlet and gray, and then on the announcements we're
Yeah.
hearing, the same fight songs and everything. I'm like, I can't. I can't.
Well, the fight
Um,
song, my sixth grade year, 1981, I played the trombone in the band, and my principal, who was a huge Buckeye fan, and I had a fifth grade teacher who was a huge Wolverine fan, who
oh wow.
I think she went to Michigan.
Okay.
He made me play the Ohio State fight song, maybe, or no, no, I played the Michigan fight song, maybe, for to Raz, our principal, on the intercom. So if you can
Oh
imagine, it
man.
was a trombone
Oh
on
my
the
God.
intercom. I was like a sixth grader. It was so embarrassing. I never forget that. But anyway,
That's great. That's awesome.
well, I saw the photo that you reposted of the Michigan coach sitting
Yeah,
in front
Dusty
of,
May.
yeah.
So
What
that
do you think
game
of him?
against
Yeah,
that he did two things in the tournament that I think kind of give you an idea of
yeah.
why coaches get paid a lot to win and whatnot. And that a good coach is so important to find. Like for many years, Miami has had trouble finding a good men's basketball coach.
Yeah.
It is unfortunately the case. They went through and a lot of times schools will just, some schools will cut the guy off immediately, but Miami would
Yeah.
let each one of them have their 5 years. It was terrible.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, excuse me. So Dusty May has that a phenomenal Final Four run with Florida Atlantic, right?
Mm.
And he was actually being rumored as potential for Ohio State gig, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he ended up going to Michigan. I think he accepted the job, he said, without even going. And the
Wow.
reason why is because when he went up there, he was just so impressed with how everybody was just so positive, right? So one of the things that he
Yeah,
did,
you don't want to tell Buckeye fans that. I mean, I agree
well,
with you.
I,
I've been
I
there a
know.
few times, and even though I don't root for the team from up north like you do, they are. It is. It's different. Ohio State has, like you said, a little bit. There's a little bit of a snootiness, especially I live here in Columbus. You hear it all the time in the news and the radio, so it is a little different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, without a doubt. And I know even today the talk in a lot of the Cleveland radio stations was, um, hey, you know what, Ohio State, we're good.
yeah.
We'll take our success this year.
Uh,
And part of me wants to say, time out. I mean, if you want to have success, and Ohio
mm,
State is a football school, that's great. If you
yeah,
want to put all your eggs in the football basket, go ahead.
yeah.
But Michigan puts all their eggs so that every program has an opportunity. So
Hmm.
you look at
The women's basketball
um,
teams had a lot of
yeah. Well,
success.
you look at the men's what am I
The
thinking of?
hockey team,
The
right?
hockey's going to be great.
Yeah,
Hockey's going
yeah.
to be, they can win a natty this weekend too. And that would just, I'm sure it would just be another thorn in the side for a lot of Ohio State fans. But it's one of the things that Dusty did was, in the national championship game, which I thought was just an incredible thing, he basically had Yaxel sit down. He said, "Look, dude, I love you. You're going to sit down for 2.5 minutes."
Yeah.
That was probably one of the best moves because then he comes back, scores 5 straight points, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then on the game against Arizona, they saw something in the film. And so they told their point guard, Cadeau, said, "Look, one of the things we want you to do is
Yeah.
when you go and do your lobs, we
Yeah.
want you to lob it off the top of the backboard." And the
Okay.
reason being is because Arizona was big into trying to block any shot. So what it turned out being was it looked like a shot, it was really a pass. And so the
Yeah.
very first play of the game was like that. And there were probably 5 or 6 other times that was like that. But the reason that Dusty is such a good coach in that is because he is willing to say, okay, this isn't working. Let's find something that works.
Mm.
And he's not so stuck in, yes, there's a
And
way that he likes to
those
play.
coaches that stick to the system.
John, it's crazy
Kevin
because,
Stefanski come to mind? No.
absolutely. No, that is absolutely it. Like, this is my system and this is going to work all the time and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
Right.
And the good coaches are ones that can take a look at things and say, hey, you know
So
what?
let me ask
Let's
you this, because
make
I've
some
been
changes.
I talked about it. I've talked about my other shows here with the other guys, and then yesterday in my Stirring the Pot show, with the coaching and what you're talking about with the Michigan coach. I have a lot of disdain. Um, and I didn't watch the game, and partly the reason I didn't watch the game is I don't really love Michigan.
Understand.
But it was more that I don't have a lot of respect for Danny Hurley. Now I don't know what your
Yeah.
take is on him, but my daughter played college hoops at Buffalo. They went to the Sweet 16. They played against Don Staley in South Carolina in the Sweet 16 game back in 2018 up in New
Yeah.
York. It was a fantastic experience, but Mariah had a really hard-nosed coach. Don Staley has been known to be a hard-nosed coach.
Yeah.
We've seen this past week, Gino Ariemo kind of blowing his gasket
Yep.
at the end of that game. And then you add to this Dan Hurley and his brother, who also, Bobby, who coached at Buffalo while my daughter was also there as a player.
Right.
So I
Right.
got a little perspective on Bobby. While I want to respect the Hurleys, and I know their father was really, historically a great guy, I really am just turned off by that and how they're coaching. And then you look at a coach like you mentioned, Michigan, or the UCLA women's coach,
Yeah.
Corey
Yep.
Close, who learned under John Wooden and talks a lot about the relationship building and not being a cusser outer and respecting the game and the players and that relationship. Watching that, I mean, I just love the fact that UCLA won the women's tournament. And what do
It's
you think
awesome.
about these coaches and how we're talking about these coaches? Because we're talking about Danny Hurley, who's had a lot of success. Gino Ariema, obviously at the women's coach, having a lot of success. I've lost a lot of respect over the years, and especially, seeing some of the latest things that come out.
Sure.
Where do you fall with all that? Because they have had a lot of success and a lot of old school. There's a lot of people out there that say, well, that's the old school way and it's worked.
Okay. So um, let me start off with I was a high school coach
Mm-hmm.
for 11 years and enjoyed my time.
Yeah.
Really worked my to me the most important thing was developing a program, getting the kids to buy into the program, and then helping the kids have the best success they can have
Mm-hmm.
in my program, but also for themselves, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I was a golf coach.
Yeah.
We probably had the worst team in the league my first year. And by my last year,
You were one of the
kids
better
made
ones.
state. Kids
Yeah.
made state.
Yeah.
So when I look at coaching, I try and find the men and women who are going to try and make relationships, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, so if you go back and look at a lot of the famous coaches, we'll pick Bobby Knight as an example, and
Sure.
even Woody Hayes, if we want to go that way. You can argue and say their persona in front of the public was terrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and again, we don't and we know with Bobby Knight, we know with Woody Hayes that they played their favorites and everything else. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these players that played for him just speak glowingly of these of all these
Mm-hmm.
of all these
Mm-hmm.
coaches, right? But it doesn't mean that just because they speak glowingly, I would argue that when Woody Hayes hit Charlie Bowman, right?
Yeah.
I think that should have been a wake up call for a lot of coaches. So like my sons played soccer,
Yeah.
and God bless them. I have seen a lot of really good coaches, and then I've seen a lot of these coaches that are old
Yeah.
school, like Bobby Knight and Woody
Yeah.
Hayes still, and here we are in
Yeah.
2026.
Right.
So I'll go up to Michigan State. So let's go currently up
Right.
to Michigan State.
Yeah.
I really think right now he is one Woody Hayes moment away from just totally making the university a laughing
Really.
stock,
Okay.
because when you see how he presents himself to the public, right?
Sure.
Everyone's against us, blah 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 blah, and
Yeah.
he's very rarely has anything nice, positive, whatever to say. He is not a fan of Dusty May, and I think Dusty is trying to be as
Really.
respect. It seems like the rest of the Big Ten coaches respect Dusty May immensely, and they love. And
Yeah, Tony Izzo
I
doesn't. Tony
I don't know what it
Izzo.
is
Yeah.
about Izzo.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. And so you were talking about that picture. So that was kind of funny because
Yeah.
Dustin came out just to watch his guys kind of practice, and so the only place that he could sit down there was just kind of where he did,
Yeah.
and then to have the whole student section swearing at him and everything, and he just sitting back. That's one of my favorite pictures. But I
me.
think it is
Yeah.
an issue
Me.
with coaching this year because
Yeah.
Bobby Hurley, don't get me wrong, he could have had 3 national championships in 4 years.
Yeah.
There is something to say about that. He is good at the game. He understands the game. He knows the
Yeah.
game. But man, I tell you, if I'm a referee and I'm reffing one of his games, the first thing I'm going to do is, hey, you set foot right over that line and you cross out of the court, I'm going to tee you up.
Yeah.
Because these
What do you think
coaches,
of the Miami? So that I have, well, since you're from Miami of Ohio, what did you think at the end of this season when they beat Ohio University in the one of the games down in
the
OU?
last game of the year to
Yeah,
solidify the undefeated
and
season.
the players, their reaction to the Ohio student section, that got a little bit of traction in the media because you saw a lot of Miami players flipping them off, and and what do you think that says? Because I've shared on this show about that moment that I thought it was really poor, and that I thought it reflected on the coach. I know the players do what they, but I don't know if every coach in the league, if that happened, and I don't know what the recourse was afterwards. But what did you think of that? I mean, did you see that and what it was? I mean, because you are a
Okay.
Miami grad,
Oh, watch
so
that game. Watch that
yeah,
game in
yeah,
whole and watch the ending
yeah,
there and everything
yeah.
else.
Did it surprise you,
So
or yeah?
did it surprise me? No, because Ohio
Okay,
University has
is
owned
jerks
Miami
too.
for
Yeah,
so we have,
yeah,
there have been very few times I can sit here and say that we've beaten OU, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I think there are a couple of things. Number one, there
yeah.
were a couple instances during the game where coach's family was getting hit with stuff from the fans.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So there
I
is
didn't know
that
that.
piece.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there is
didn't.
that
Yeah,
piece. And I guess there was one time that they had to stop play, so the referees had to kind of, because I don't know if it was a water bottle that hit Travis Steele or
yeah.
hit one of his assistants
Oh
or
my.
whatever. And then they were trying to point out in the crowd who it was, and then the
Yeah,
Ohio fans were just, swearing and everything, and
yeah.
they didn't care. So I think it was a heated atmosphere. It was a huge game for both teams because, I mean, when's the last time a team has gone undefeated in the regular season?
For sure.
And
Yeah.
it being Miami, which there was a whole series of stories regarding Miami and the lack that they
Yes.
couldn't get
Yeah.
teams to play them, right or
Right.
wrong or
Right.
anything
Right.
else.
Right.
So do I think that do I think that the player's reaction is like
A
something that the
reflection.
coach would say?
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I
Okay.
do
It
think
was
it was
just
a lot of pent up frustration on the fans. Was it a little bit
sure.
over the board?
Yeah.
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 Did you,
Well, I guess there was that other
but
incident. They said that that the coach got upset at halftime or something and broke
oh,
some
at Western
equipment. And
Michigan? Yeah,
yeah.
that was at Western Michigan, and he was I don't know the whole thing.
Now,
He
Western
ruined the
Michigan,
band.
I've been there before. It's not like OU going to play a game. I mean, I mean,
But tell me, correct me if I'm wrong. The band is like right on top of the opposing
I
team.
don't
Is that
remember
correct?
that part exactly. I've been in the arena when of course, keep in mind that it was women's basketball, not men's, so the
Okay.
atmosphere was a little different. But yeah,
The ending of the half was really strange because there were some unbelievably ridiculous calls. And we can even talk about, like, I thought last night's game was one of the best officiated games in college
okay,
basketball this year, right?
yeah,
That game with Miami and Western Michigan
was terrible.
was one of the worst I
Yeah,
had watched. And
yeah,
so I think Travis overreacted. I can't speak other than,
Yeah.
I mean, clearly it did. He did come back next morning, apologized, bought the equipment, went up to the guy, said, "Hey,
Okay.
I'm really sorry about that. I
Yeah.
lost my cool and
Yeah.
and
That's
everything else."
good.
But I think the big part was there was a frustration on how the game was being called because
Well, yeah. Yeah.
there's some I think there's some legitimate
Well,
issues with NIL betting
Well,
and
and that's
refereeing
I know
that
you
we have
got
to figure out.
I know that's and I know you have a little bit of background with that and the betting and the NIL and that's I guess one of the questions and we'll go to a break after this, but
Sure.
this whole thing that's happening in college basketball or college sports in general, and I spoke about it again last night on my show. And having a daughter that played college sports and you have some background in all of this. I mean, the NIL, the transfer portal is just going nuts. Like, I was looking at some stats last night that, the year before last year, there were 35,000 players in college sports. Um, and that 17,000, I think this is college basketball, 17,000, 16,000 women play college basketball, 17 or 18,000 men. Anyway, like right now, there's approaching 1,500 kids in this transfer portal on the women's side, just the women's side of the game. And it's been
Crazy.
open for about a day and a half. The men's just opened. But I
Crazy.
mean, you think about it, that's 10% of the women's players. Mariah, when she played hoops at Buffalo, that was right at the tail end, right before the transfer portal was a thing. So she
Okay.
graduated in 2018 when the NIL, all this stuff has started happening. But I mean, there would be kids who would transfer, but the old rules would be, if you transferred, you sat out for half a season. You
Right.
had now you don't. And I think it's just ruining everything. You can't find any loyalty. I mean, that's another reason why I applaud what UCLA did. They had, 6 seniors on that team.
Yeah.
They stuck together. You rarely see that. Tennessee on the women's side has lost their entire roster because they were annoyed with the coach. And
Yeah.
what do you make of all this? The NIL, the betting, the portal. Is it a good thing?
Man, I think it's a good thing when kids can get paid for their name, image, likeness. I have no
Sure.
problem with that.
Yeah.
I think I think the way that universities were using these kids for years and
Yep.
years, these kids had a right to the money. I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Now, the rules that are set up now are just ridiculous because if you're a coach, like even Dusty May last year, he lost a bunch of kids in the transfer portal, and then his starting five were all transfers in from last year for
Yeah.
this year, right?
Yeah.
And part of it was, it's your second year here. You lost a whole bunch of kids. What are you going to do, right? So I can either try and find the kids that play the style that I want now, and
Hmm.
hope and pray I can get them to mesh,
Yeah.
and I can sell this to the guys who stay. And I think one of the reasons that Michigan, and not just basketball, but also football was successful and won the national championship there too, because they were able to convince some of those guys that could have left, hey, stay. We got something
Hmm.
cooking here. Hey,
Yeah.
stay. We got something good here.
Hmm.
Now, I think it was noble of President Trump to try and figure out a way to solve this with getting everybody involved in this. I'm still not sure
Okay.
that's the right answer, but
Right.
at least it's now okay, look, you've got what, 5 years. You can transfer what, once?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I should have that in front of me. I don't. But I think it's a good start. But
Hmm.
the way the NCAA just said, you know what? Hey, we're done. Your Supreme Court said that they're going to do this. Fine, we're not going to deal with it. I think that's what the NCAA did. Instead of just going ahead and sticking their neck out and said, no, we're going. This is what we say. And then if you lose, you lose, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, they just to me, they just put up their hands and said, we're not going to worry about it anymore. And then now you had all the collectives come in, and you had all these
Hmm.
different organizations. And look, Miami was one who was very late to the ball game in terms of a collective in NIL. And
Yeah.
now I would argue that they finally woken up. Heck, they were able to get four wide receivers that would have gone to a couple of SEC schools or a Big 12 school, and they're coming to Miami to play. So
Yeah.
I think I think schools took a while to figure out how they were going to work it. The big schools that had the
Right.
money could do it quickly. The smaller schools, they realized this is gonna not
Well,
gonna
what
help
is it
us.
like? I read it was $20 million or roughly that these schools are getting like somebody's, I forget the collective, there's a name of the group that's kind of overseeing some of this, that the projected number right now is around 20 million that schools can use with NIL.
It it seems to
That's,
be different for, and again, I'll go back to Ohio State here. So
yeah.
when they won the national championship, there was the big talk of, well, they spent the most money on NIL, which they did. Was it 22, 23 million, something like
Okay.
that?
So I guess it
But they won the
adjusts.
national
Yeah.
championship. I don't care
Yeah.
about that. I'm not
Right.
a big into, oh, you bought a net. I don't care, right? You won, good for you. Congratulations. You still didn't beat Michigan that year, but you won your national championship. Good for you, right? No, I,
Yeah.
I am
I
okay,
love
a
it.
little
Yeah.
dib. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. But so if you look at this now, a lot of the bigger schools that had the money were able to jump into this. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of schools were like, no, it's not going to work. We're just going to hold off. We're going to hold off. And then they fell 2, 3 years behind, and now they're playing catch up. So like Penn State, I
Okay.
think right now, I
Yeah.
think what you're going to see with Penn State, they are going to be a formidable football program. They are going to be unbelievable. And they are very, very active in not just NIL, but also in grabbing those guys that played for them and the women too, because they're doing this for volleyball too. I don't want to just say,
Yeah.
men's
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
But I think schools now are trying to do a better job of grabbing their alumni and said, hey, will you help us out? And maybe it's the collectives. That's a possibility. I don't know
Right.
that. I don't know the setup on how each school does their collectives, but what I'm seeing is, and I saw this with Penn State. My cousin is married to a former defensive lineman for Penn State,
Okay.
and they are very active in when they bring guys in to come take a look.
Sure.
My cousin and her husband are right there helping out,
Really? Okay.
and it's. I think schools are doing a good job with understanding our alumni, bringing them back, and
Yep.
helping. Like Ron Harper's a great example from Miami.
Yeah.
Ron wanted his kid to come here, but you couldn't pass up what he was getting from Maryland, I think. No, wait,
Yeah.
Rutgers. And
Yeah.
so, but I think a lot of schools are trying to reach out to their alumni now and say, hey,
It's an
this is
interesting
what you
case
need.
because I appreciate that. I think that, knowing Buffalo a little bit, where my daughter played, I was up there in November. They had a 10-year reunion with the women's team, going back to the 2018 season, or 20, I'm sorry, referencing back to 2016,
Got it.
when that team in 2015, 2016 actually made it to the NCAA tournament. They won the league, they won the MAC league. So they were recognizing that team for winning the MAC. What I'm getting at here is that they're Buffalo, and this is on the women's side of things. Her name is the new coach there at Buffalo. Her name is Kristen Sharkey. Sharkey
Okay.
used to play with my daughter Mariah when they were teammates at Buffalo back in 2015, 2016. Buffalo has
Okay.
brought back one of their alumni, you know, Kristen Sharkey.
Can't beat
Their
that.
team, but now their team this year was god awful. They won 3 games. They lost 27 or 28 games. They haven't had a season like this in a huge amount of time in Buffalo. They've prided themselves on having some really good basketball. So
Right. Right.
they're
For a long
going through
time.
that now. Contrast that, and so I'm really behind Kristen because I know her personally. I know the team, the players. She's going to build the program back up. Prior to that, this is just another example in Buffalo. They had brought in a coach named Becky Burke. I don't know if you ever heard of her, but if you look
Hmm.
her up sometime, she's the Arizona coach now, out
Oh,
in
I think that's
Arizona.
where. Okay. Okay.
So Becky Burke came from some school, I think, in the South, and came to Buffalo over the last 4 or 5 seasons. She
Okay.
came after Coach Jack, who Mariah had, who's Coach Jack is now at Syracuse. What I'm getting at now is that Becky Burke, she brought a lot of success to Buffalo. They won the WNIT the year before, but then she bolted for Arizona this past season, where we get back to the portal. Almost the entire Arizona women's basketball team has entered the transfer portal this year, and so it's a contrast in, you talk about coaches, and I
Mhm.
hear from people in Buffalo now. When I went up there in November, while they were having success, great, but it was an outsider. It was an alumni. She brought quick success, but she didn't buy into the community, and the community pays attention to that. Like you're talking about with like Miami and growing up and going to Miami of Ohio, and you know the difference. And
Right.
it's really interesting to see when I checked the transfer portal. I wanted to see, and literally the entire Arizona team is in the
Wow.
transfer portal. So I find it very interesting. I'm hoping, I'm a sucker for Buffalo. I hope that they, I think Kristen's going to bring more success to the team, but it's a grind. And like you talked about with college sports right now and finding the players and the money, the basketball team's not getting a lot of money for NIL as much as like
No.
probably the guys do. So anyway.
And that 2018 for Buffalo, that was also the year that the men's team almost made it to the
Oh, it
Sweet
was
16
it
too.
was
That was
a
crazy.
memory of a lifetime.
Was
I
that Nate Oates' last year at Buffalo?
Yes, it
Okay, or
was.
second to last year because he went
Oh,
2019
what a
too, right?
wonderful, yeah, it was a wonderful stretch of basketball. And, both Central Michigan in the MAC, this is the women's side, and Buffalo. This is, back in 2018, they both made it. And if I'm not wrong, Central Michigan beat Ohio State women's basketball team that year to make it into the Sweet 16 on their end. They lost to Oregon. Buffalo ended up beating Florida State on their way to play South Carolina, so we're not seeing that a lot in the women's side of basketball these days. Two teams in the MAC
No.
making it to the Sweet 16 of women's basketball. I mean, it's almost unheard of now. So that was a big time. And so anyway, yeah, but that team, you are correct. 2018, they both. Now that was when you're talking about Nate Oates. That was the 2016 season. That was the end of Mariah's sophomore year. It was the 2016 MAC tournament when both Buffaloes won. And you're
So
referencing
was
that.
Hurley's last year there 2016?
Wasn't it Nate Oates that had? See,
I
I'm
don't know.
not.
I could look it up. Hold on.
Yeah, we'll have to
I will
look
look
that
that up.
up.
Good question.
Yeah, but they both
Let me.
won it because Buffalo beat in that game in 2016. Buffalo beat Central
I think
Michigan in
Hurley
the
was coaching then. I think Hurley was
Okay. And
coaching. That
both
was
games
his
ended
last year.
dramatically because the women's won the game on the last second shot in overtime, and the men's game, I think, went to the very end
Yeah, that's right. So you're right. Nate was an assistant with
with
Hurley,
Bobby
and then
Hurley.
he got the gig when Hurley left.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because when Mariah graduated in 2018, Nate Oates was the Buffalo head coach, which I don't have a lot of positives to say about Nate Oates either, but
I don't think Alabama has a lot of
he
positives to
has
say about
he
Nate
had a
Oates
lot
right
of
now.
situations going on and on the family
Yeah.
side of things
Oh,
that
okay.
unfortunately were made public quite a bit back in the day. So
Yeah, it's tough.
anyway, hey, let's pause for a quick commercial break. On the
Go for it.
backside of this, I want to talk to you about the Masters coming up because you have some
Do it.
strong interest in golfing and a couple other stories that you've been writing
Sure.
about. All right,
Absolutely.
we'll be right back, everybody.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for coming back to the Johnny Cleveland podcast, part of the Fanatical L's Network, part of Fans First Sports Network. I'm John, and that's our guest, Bill
Petrello, you got it.
Petrello.
You're good.
Bill is an amazing guy who works all these different gigs, and I've gotten to know Bill through writing for Northeast Ohio Sports Insider. Shout out to all of those fine folks there. Natalie
Amen.
Turk, who runs the group. Bill helps a big part with that. Munch Bishop and a bunch of other folks that help out that do great work. What is our Cavs reporter? What is I always her name slips me right now.
I know. You're so funny. You
She's
should say that. I'm looking it
yeah,
up right now
she's
because
does some of the
she's
Cavs game.
awesome.
Yes,
She
she
they she has so many of the players have a great deal of respect for her,
absolutely.
and she
Is
is
it
starting to
Rachel?
build a really good relationship
Yeah.
with them.
Well, I give a shout out to everybody there. Natalie's worked really hard to help us get into opportunities to get credentialed. I got to go to the Browns game last year and hope to do a few more for the group this year. So it's a great thing. Um, so Bill, I know you just recently wrote an article for the group for Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders about the upcoming Masters, and you mentioned you've coached golf, and you just kind of an overview on the Masters, some betting odds and some things in your perspective. What are your thoughts going into this year's Masters? Obviously, I guess one thing I wanted to bring up is Tiger Woods. I grew up in a day and age where we all kind of watched Tiger growing up, and I had admired him quite a bit, and then seeing him win a lot, and then Then he went through some different tragedies, and now he's kind of going through some of that again. Obviously, right on the eve of the Masters starting. What's your take on him and just the Masters coming up?
Okay, so this is also the celebration of 1986 when Jack Nicklaus came back
Mm,
to win in dramatic fashion. I mean, that still to me, I was at Miami at the time, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and I'm studying like my accounting. So we
yeah.
had a big accounting test that was going to be happening the next
Uh-huh.
day. So I'm down in our breezeway, and I'm watching this. I'm watching this because one of my dad's cousins was a former PGA tour player. He only
Okay.
made two events, and he let his card kind of expire.
Okay.
But he's been a long time golf supporter up in the Cleveland area.
Yeah.
Long time, it was actually a coach for Lakeland Community College too for about 20 some odd years. Just
Okay.
a wonderful man. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we've always loved golf, right? And so every time that something was happening when Jack was out there, I'm telling my friends, hey, you may want to stay because Jack now is within three. And then, hey, you may want to stay. Jack now is within one. Hey, and by the time it was 5:30 and the whole play, we were packed.
Yeah.
There were like 30 guys in there, and we're like, what
Yeah.
is going on?
Yeah.
And so it's the anniversary of that phenomenal win, right?
That's true.
So
Yes.
this is also the first year since
That's 40 years ago,
1994.
right?
Yeah, I know.
Shit.
86. 86, man. But this is the first year since 1994 both Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods will not be golfing.
Where's Phil?
So Phil had a major family issue, and so
Okay.
he could not attend the dinner. So I don't know what the deal is. It's been
Okay.
very quiet, but
Okay.
he's not there.
Okay. Okay.
So you have both two of the best, probably two of the best that have ever played
Yes.
Augusta are
Yes.
not there.
Yeah.
Now, my feeling on it, I think what they did was great. Golf now has an unbelievable number of really, really good stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a fan of stories, right? I am a
Absolutely. Yeah.
fan of stories. And so that hopefully, and I hope that the male and female golf writers down there are not going, oh, it's just terrible without Tiger and without Phil and everything.
Yeah.
There are so many awesome stories. So, couple stories. Number one, I
Yeah.
think Bryson DeChambeau is going to win his first Masters. I think he
Okay.
is ready to go. I'm not a fan of the Live Tour, but I
Yeah.
can't deny the fact that I'm a fan of Bryson. I think what he's done for golf is great. I think he's taken the technological aspect
Mm-hmm.
and just really showed people that I can change my golf swing
Sure.
based off of the statistical metrics that I'm seeing, not just the clubs that I play, right?
Right.
But also the way I approach how a course is set up, right? Like there's the story
Yeah.
about he made his own, he 3D made his own irons, right? So he
Right.
3D computer graphed his own irons, right?
Easy.
I think this guy is going to be. I think he's going to be one of the ones that's primed to have a great Masters. I'm picking him to win. The other one that I'm picking to win. So the writers who cover it love to talk about the metrics, like trying to predict the winner of the Masters. Like so, one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
great things is and the PGA Tour does a great job of having all of the statistics that you can follow, like shots saved, tee to green,
Uh-huh.
and it's shots gained, tee to green,
Uh-huh.
and I get all that. It is really cool stuff. There's one name that is like in the top five for almost every single category, and he's already won once and almost won three times so far this year, and that's Siwoo Kim. And I think
Yeah.
now with the caddy that he has, this is going to be this could be a tournament that he could win. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many great stories, and that's the one thing that golf has is because there's so many players, you have so many stories.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of foreign golfers. Robert McIntyre I'm just
Mm-hmm.
waiting for him to have, a phenomenal showing. You got Justin Rose, who I don't think there's anybody who's been playing any better since,
Yeah.
the Ryder Cup
Yeah.
at all, other than maybe Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele. But
Yeah.
there are so many incredible stories. And that's the one thing that I hope that they're going to start really promoting here, because I went to the 2024 Masters. I went
I
to
was just going to
Wednesday.
ask you that if you've been down there.
It was my son got tickets, and he took his wife and his father-in-law, and we just spent all day there, and it was incredible. and even though it was a practice round, and then we went to go watch the par three, we
Uh-huh.
watched the whole rest of the par three tournament, which was great.
Uh-huh.
But it's so hard to explain to somebody what that course is like because it looks so beautiful, right? But
Yeah.
when you get on there, there's so many hills on there. So we were watching Rory and his caddy, and Rory hits like a 320-yard drive. He was trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
figure out if he can drive this. I think it was 13.
Yeah.
And so the ball lands up on the green, and then it slides all the way off, and it goes like 90 yards away because of the green is elevated and it's all
Yeah.
this dip.
Yeah.
So Rory's walking up to the ball. His caddy walks up, and his caddy's on the green, kind of even with us. You
Yeah.
couldn't even see Rory. You couldn't even see his hat. And so
Really?
we're like, where is he? But that's the kind of perspective you don't get
Right.
unless you're there. And so the Masters is one of those golf tournaments that's just amazing. So I did another story about
Yeah.
that, which I'm hoping that'll come up. I'm trying to finish it about the course record at Augusta.
Okay.
So the course record at Augusta is 61,
Who did that?
and it was not shot by a pro. It was shot by a member. His name is
Really?
Jeff. His name is Jeff Knox. Jeff Knox was a University of Georgia graduate who graduated with finance.
Uh-huh.
He didn't play golf for Georgia. He just played golf, became a
Yeah.
member of. But he was one of the golfers that in the Masters tournament, if they have an odd number of golfers that qualify on Saturday,
Yeah.
they have to bring in one of their members to play along. So it's to keep the pace of play. It's to keep it so that you're not going to
Oh.
have one guy go out too far. And they've been doing this forever.
Wow.
Guys, yeah. So
So this
he's
guy
come
hit a
in,
61 at the actual
shot a
tournament?
61 on the conditions of the tournament. Yeah.
When did
And so
that happen? When did
it's a
that happen?
great story. It's just a
Was
great
it a
story, and it's
recent years?
probably 2004, 2005 maybe.
Oh, wow.
So he played golf with three pros at one time. So he was calling and say, hey,
Yeah.
we need to play with Rory. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
He played with Rory. He beat Rory by a stroke, and Rory's like, my God, this guy's good.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods played against him and lost, and Tiger still uses him as advice around the green. So he's used Knox many times when he's been at Augusta to say, hey, tell me about the green here.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
Jeff Knox is probably one of the best putters of the members there. But it's a cool story.
That is really neat.
That's the one thing that golf has are stories, and this tournament.
So when you do a story like
that,
that, what do you, Bill? What do you have? How do you gather information for that? I mean, for the listener, maybe listening.
That's a great,
today. Yeah,
John. That's a great question. So whenever I got to thank Natalie for giving me the opportunity here.
Sure.
So she opened it up once and asked people to write 2 sports stories, right? And so I wrote 2 sports stories. One about Ron Harper.
Yeah.
And then another about the 1997 Guardians Orioles Game 3 that my wife and I went to that we won when it was in the extra innings. And this is when Davey Johnson went ballistic.
Yes.
And it looked like the ball actually nicked off of the bat of Omar Vizquel. And then, it should have been a foul.
Yeah.
It was a pass ball. And we win with that one, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote that, and she's like, hey, this is good stuff. Would you like to write? And so I've written probably, I don't know, 300 articles.
Yeah.
I got to sit in on an Indians game. That was great. Right. That was like, oh my gosh, that was a highlight. Right.
Right.
I got to interview Jim Thome, and that still is one of my favorite opportunities is to interview a Hall of Famer like that. And he was just so gracious, and he was so wonderful. And then I got to cover the MLS final in Columbus too, which was great.
Yeah.
So I got to be there with all the, got a chance to talk to a couple of the ESPN guys who cover the soccer for ESPN. It was cool. And so Natalie has given me an opportunity to do stuff, which I just greatly appreciate. So when I sit down and try and have a story, a lot of times I'm trying to figure out what is it that is of interest to me. So I'll pick an Ohio State story love hockey. There was a story because the Ohio State women were playing in the national championship game against, I think it was either Minnesota or Wisconsin.
Okay.
And the goalie at the time for the captain for Ohio State was an Ohio person. And I'm like, okay, that would be a kind of a cool story. And so as I started
Uh,
to research and kind of reached out to some people,
yeah.
it turned out to be one of those things that, wow, that was a really good story. She's
Yeah.
a great story. She's a
Yeah.
great person and really loved it. My sister works with Katie Spots. Katie is the one who
Mm.
is getting ready to row from Africa. I'm sorry. She's getting ready to row from South America
Yeah.
to New Guinea. So she's getting
Whoa.
ready to row the Pacific Ocean 10,000 miles,
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And so I got to interview her and did a story on her because I like those things where you have
Yeah.
one individual that they're trying to overcome something. And what's neat is Katie's from Mentor. She graduated from Mentor
Oh
High
my
School, so
gosh. Yeah.
it was kind of an easy thing, and a lot of
Yeah.
things that we had that were connections. But I try and find something that is of interest to me,
Yeah.
and then I just start kind of reading up and researching it.
Yeah.
And so one of the ones we had talked about was bowling. So when we were
Yeah.
kids, every Saturday I bowled. Every
Yeah.
Saturday we
Yeah.
had the same five guys for 4 straight years.
Okay.
And the last 3 years we ended up winning the junior bowling league every year because
Well,
we
and
stayed
Bill, what
together.
Bill has wrote, if some of you are listening, maybe on Apple, Spotify later on, Bill writes again for Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, and he recently wrote an article the last few weeks about bowling, the state of bowling, especially here in the state of Ohio. And I was telling Bill before we started, we've got a new team at my high school at Licking Heights that just got off the ground, so it's kind of coming back and it's surging. And you kind of wrote a lot about that in this article you're talking about.
So the Netflix has this special about Born to Bowl, and it's focusing on five guys who are professional bowlers from last year. So
Okay.
the official bowling season runs from basically February through late April, early May, and that's it. Then
Yeah.
then then they go back to their other full-time jobs or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Um, so this has been really good. This Netflix series is really fun to listen to, and you've got two guys who are Ohio people here,
Yeah.
right? Technically three. So
Yeah.
one of them is from Urbana, even though he was born and raised in Canada, but he lives in
Okay.
Urbana.
Yeah.
You have one who is from Parma, who used to be, I think he was used to be either an accountant or an IRS
Okay.
accountant,
Uh-huh.
and now he's bowling, on the tour. And so when I try and find a story that is interesting, like for me, bowling was interesting because it's something that I did. I'm a high school teacher, and
Yeah.
so I have kids that bowl in my high school. In fact, the first 300 bowled in the actual state competition was bowled by one of my former students from Kettering
Nice.
Fairmont High School.
Yeah.
So we always kid with them, and I'll even now on social media, I'm like, hey, the bowling ended here. Unfortunately, we didn't make it, but you're still the first 300 bowler. And Hunter laughs about it, and he's like, yeah, he goes, it's kind
Ah,
of cool.
that's
Um,
great.
so, but it's funny because the popularity in the high school area is huge, and the
Hmm.
problem is a lot of communities don't have enough lanes. Now,
Hmm.
Columbus just had two pro bowling events this past 2 weekends,
Yeah.
right?
Now,
And the
well, I was
big
telling
one
you that
was
yeah, we're having issues like my son's in Special Olympics, and there's these leagues that you talk about, and then the schools, and so you're getting more limited on the number of lanes that are there for everybody. So yeah.
it's tough. Like when I went to Miami, one of my best friends right now, he is a vice president of the Milwaukee Brewers. So his family owned
Wait,
Western Bowl down in
this is
Cincinnati.
wait, this is your best
What This is
friend?
one of my good friends from Miami. Yeah, he's a vice president for the
He's the
Milwaukee
vice
Brewers.
president of the Milwaukee
One of them.
Bucks?
Yeah. No, Brewers.
The
Baseball.
Brewers. Oh,
Yes.
even better.
Yeah,
How
even
many
better
vice
is right.
presidents are there?
Even three or four. Like he's vice president in
Dude,
charge of
have you been to a game up there?
sponsorships and everything.
You're a big baseball
Um,
guy.
we were going to if the Brewers and the Guardians made the World Series this past
Oh,
year,
that's right. Yeah.
but they unfortunately the Brewers went out and then the Guardians went out too. Um,
Boy,
so
that would have been a good classic.
I know, but so their bowling they owned Western Bowl, which 160 lanes or something like that, but it was
Wow.
open 24 hours, right? It was open. I mean, it was like three
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning on a Friday.
Right.
He's like, hey, you want to go bowling? I'm like, I got accounting at 3. He's like, I'm like, where? How do you do that? He's like, my family owns Western Bowl. All right, great. So we went down.
Now,
We went
where is
down there
this?
3 o'clock.
Wait, where is Western Bowl? Tell me.
Oh, west side of Cincinnati. Oh, I gotta.
Oh, so it's down in Cincinnati.
Yes, Western Bowl down in Cincinnati. Yeah,
Okay.
his family's big Cincinnati family. Big, big.
Wow.
His parents have since retired and they moved out to Arizona. In
So if
fact,
I
all of
wanted to
his
go
family.
bowling right now and I wanted to drive down Cincinnati, I could go to
I
Western
think
Bowl.
Western Bowl is still there. Yeah, I think that's. But that's the problem is there aren't a lot of places, and so the high schools are trying to figure out what they can do for this, and I don't know what the answer is because it's kind of an expensive sport. I mean, if you've watched bowling now,
Hmm.
there's
Yeah.
we're always used to the one-handed bowling. Most
Yeah.
of the pro bowlers now are two-handed. And I
It's
know you're like,
crazy.
two-handed
I
bowling,
just,
what are you talking about? Watch it. You just got to watch it because they'll use two hands all the way until they release it, and then they release it with one. But
it's nuts.
everything is two hands.
I can't do it. Well, I couldn't do it anyway, but yeah.
It's crazy. But it was so much fun to sit there and do that story. And I was trying to, I kind of reached out to some of the pros, but I know they were busy and I couldn't get anything from them. I really like to try and interview the people. Like
Yeah.
Cleveland Soccer Club, Cleveland SC, they were great. And the Akron City FC for soccer too, they were great. So
Okay.
I was able to interview their coaches, their owners,
Oh, I love that.
but a lot of times I don't get that opportunity.
Hmm.
Like for the bowling one, I didn't get that chance to do that. So,
Yeah.
but you find what you love, and you've got to find the stories, and you do have to read. You have to be you have to be a
Well, and that's
reader
what
to
I really
say
appreciate
find it.
about what you do and what a lot of things that like Natalie has given us the opportunity to do. And I think for those out there who want to read some good material, Bill and Munch and myself and Natalie, we all and others all write there, and it's a really good product. And so I would encourage everybody to check that out. If you just Google a Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, you'll find that page. Um, I know we're kind of running. So many things I want to talk. I'll have to have you come back, Bill.
Anytime.
But I
So you
wanted to,
wanted to talk Browns though, right?
yeah, brownies because this is the Browns podcast
I
network.
get it. I
Um,
get it. Let's
the
go. Let's come on. I'm rolled up
but
my
what are
sleeves.
your
I'm ready.
yeah? Well, he's wearing. I don't know if you guys can see this, but he's wearing his Guardians or his Cleveland
Ricky Vaughn. My
Ricky
Ricky Vaughn. I can.
Vaughn. There you go. I
Yeah.
got it. Yep. Awesome stuff. Love it. Love it. No, but the brownies, okay, so I'm a big Shador Sanders fan. I got the
Same.
jersey. I know a lot of people are for or against him for various reasons. The whole shenanigans this last couple weeks with the ownership coming back out and Jimmy Haslam saying, "Hey, we're going to
Oh my
give him a fresh start a week, a year after him saying that ship has sailed, basically, was a swing and a miss." So it's really brought a lot of different emotions to Browns fans. I don't care for it one bit. I think Jimmy talks about this Browns organization not being dysfunctional, but I thought it was another example of him showing just how dysfunctional this team can be at times. And I know we have colleagues like Munch Bishop on the side who he'll comment a time or two
He
about
is
just
he is a very opinionated version.
very,
Yeah.
very strong words about the Brownies and where they're at right now. But where are you at right now with the ownership? What he just said, the state of the Browns. Are you looking forward to this season? I'm always optimistic as a Browns fan, but it certainly has been a difficult, especially since the big trade a few years ago for Deshaun Watson. So where do you at? Where do you fall with all of this? And like recently, what
Okay.
Bill or what Haslam said.
Okay. It's Jimmy's team. He signs the checks. He can say whatever he wants. But man, I tell you, for a man who is supposedly this brilliant businessman,
Yeah.
this organization has absolutely no clue about marketing other than to market ridiculously stupid stuff. I mean, they have perhaps one of the most dedicated fan bases, and instead of giving the fan bases what they want, instead they feel like it's better to let's just mix things up. I don't know. Jimmy it's his team. He's kind of doing the same thing with the Milwaukee Bucks, and so a lot of the Bucks players are like, "Hey, I'm done. I'm done
Yeah.
with this guy." And so I think that's an important
That's an interesting observation
thing to
because a lot
look
of
at him,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
That's an important thing to look at when you're trying to make a judgment on on Haslam, but I have not been a fan of Andrew Berry, and
Mhm.
one really good draft here. I'm sorry, doesn't do me anything regarding the five other crappy ones that he's had. Now, it does make me wonder how much they gave him. Did he really have that much say, or did Deep
Mhm.
Podesta have the say? Did Deep Podesta have the final say in things?
Mhm.
We'll never know that. We'll never
Mhm.
know what the issues were between he and Stefanski. No one's
Yeah.
going to come out. I think
Yeah.
I think clearly you're seeing some of the players come out and tell you what they think of Stefanski. And I think the players have every right to finally say it. And I don't care if they're saying it to promote their
Sure.
their podcast or their friends' podcast. So what? They were there. I wasn't there.
Right.
And if they're giving me their perspective on what they saw, I will tend to believe it and say, okay, I bet it's 80% true. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of Andrew. I think Andrew set the team up to fail last year. I really
Mhm.
honestly do. I think Deep
Mhm.
Podesta did not have anything to say with last year because basically this time last year, he was kind of taken out of the loop for a lot of things, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
Haslam would say, well, he's going to work on our business end and stuff. Okay, fine. So I think last year was all on Barry, and if Andrew Barry was going to go into a season relying on three offensive linemen who had major knee surgeries, then he's clueless. He really is. I will say that. Sorry, I didn't. I will say this. I like Todd Monken. I think
Yeah.
this. I think this is a good hire. I hate how organizations do this. You start and say we want a players coach, then you get a players coach. Oh, we need a hard part, and then you get a
Right.
hard
Right.
ass coach. Then we
Yeah.
want a players coach. Then we want a hard ass coach. Like, oh my gosh, you guys are kind of clueless with this. I mean, we can say what we want about the Guardians, but to
Do
go
you?
from
Yeah.
Francona to Stephen Vogt, where both of those guys understand the importance of building relationships with the players. I
Yes.
don't I don't think and I don't think Stefanski ever made an effort to build a relationship with the players. I really don't.
I mean, he would
So
talk
I think
about that.
Monken is
He would. He
fortunate.
would. He would show it. Like he would. They would discuss it in public about him trying to build relationships. But you're right. I mean, I've never. Now I know a few people that have interviewed, like people here at Fans First, who have interviewed Kevin, who grew up in New Jersey, and then we have a guy here with Fans First who also
Okay.
coaches football out in New Jersey. He's part of the Fans First Network. Great guy, and he has talked to Stefanski twice over the last couple of years and had good interviews with him. I think Stefanski's a good guy, but I just don't think he, as far as a everything you just talked about, as far as a coach and how he goes about things, I think it was just time for a change. His time had come and gone.
Yep.
They had some success. 2023 was, fun. Joe Flacco came in at the end of that season and brought a lot of hype, but it was time for a change. I think Todd Monken, like you said, is, an older guy. He's been around the block. He's coached a lot of players, and you certainly get the idea that he's going to be, sharing his thoughts and feelings more outwardly. I had Lance Riseland. I don't know if you follow him on social
Yeah.
media. Great writer and follower of the Browns, and he talked a little bit about Monken and just we're going to have a much clearer picture during the season, probably how things are going, and he'll share that probably a lot more publicly. So
I mean, you look at the success that he has had at different places, and he's had to motivate not just pros but also college kids, right?
yeah,
And and when he was brought on in Georgia, it's not surprising. Then wow, look at that, they win a national championship. Son of a gun,
yeah.
right? I think
How
he
where do you think
has.
what do you think Monken's going to do like with the team? How do you think he's going to like? What will be his initial strategies going into this season? Obviously, everyone's talking about how the Browns don't have any offense. They we've got a defense, but how do you think Monken will go about making that shift?
Well, I think the first thing that they've realized, what they signed, three offensive lineman free
Yeah,
agents, right?
yeah,
Okay. So I think clearly he's seeing, hey, we need help up front, right? We need help up front. And maybe Baltimore didn't give him everything that he necessarily needed from a standpoint
hmm
of offensive line, right?
hmm
Um, so we were, I was talking about this with some other people, and so bring it up too. So
yeah,
sixth pick of the draft, who are you going to go with?
yeah.
Did you see that the kid from Louisville, the right guard
What?
from Louisville,
Okay.
just said he's going to enter the NFL draft. That was not the case. He was not going to. He was going to stick with Louisville his senior
Oh,
year.
really?
And now he's coming. Yeah, now he's going to make himself available. And I think Todd McShay said he's a number 8. You know, he'd be a number 8 pick right now. So I'm like,
Wow.
whoa.
Okay.
So I think some things have changed a little bit in terms of. I think they've gone off. They've gone defense a lot. Um, but this is tough. You got the 6th pick, the 24th, and the 39th,
See,
right?
now based on last year's, how that worked, you get the sense like, Andrew Barry, like you mentioned before, I don't trust him either. I feel like he's going to fall back. I think they're going to give up the pick. I don't think they're going to stay. And I feel bad because I think there's a lot of good talent, especially in those first 6 to 8
Yeah,
picks.
I think
And
I need to
I think
pick.
you need to grab one of those guys. Now, a lot of people are wanting the Browns to take a wide receiver. A lot of people are talking about Carnell Tate. I like Carnell Tate. I know some people who know Carnell Tate down here in Columbus personally. He's a great kid. But I don't think he's like he's not going to change everything with your team. I know the Browns need a wide receiver. But if you historically go back and look at the Browns, and this is probably historically too, that if you look at drafts of the Browns just over the last 20 years, they've only taken two wide receivers in the first round to begin with. One of them was Braylon Edwards
Right.
from Michigan back in 2005. Uh,
Yeah.
Corey Coleman from Baylor was the other one. The Browns have traditionally taken these wide receivers anywhere from the third round on. To Cedric Tillman is the latest that they took in the third round.
Right.
So I don't see the Browns, even though Umber wants to run to the podium and take a wide receiver at 6. I don't think the Browns are going to do it. I either think they're going to trade back or they're going to go somewhere else. I want the Browns to take Caleb Downs. Uh, if he's there and if it's
It's so
him
if he's
and
there,
Carnell
I
Tate,
agree.
I am taking Caleb Downs. I'm taking
How do
Caleb
you turn
Downs.
that down, right? How do you turn down Caleb Downs? I agree. I thought he was the most. I still think he was the most one of the most impactful football players last year in college football,
Yeah.
and he's going to be a year after year, all-star in the NFL.
Are the
But
Browns gonna? Is Monken gonna go? I mean, he needs to address the offensive line. We've got a couple running backs now. We're gonna probably, I would think, run the ball quite heavily, more so even than in the past. Rely on our tight ends. Get a couple extra guys. You've already got a pretty good one in Harold Fannin.
you know, I'm thinking
Okay.
the more I think about it, it's either going to be an offensive lineman or Caleb Downs at 6 if they don't trade.
Yeah.
Then when you go to 24, you like, if you pick Caleb Downs, then who is left? Who is the best player left that might be an offensive lineman or a wide receiver?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that might be the case. If you don't see that and you want to, and you're like, well, there's a lot of good talent here. If you want to trade that 24th pick and then maybe get into the top of the second round, so you can almost go back to back with the second round because you have the
Yeah.
39th pick.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go to the top of the second round, I mean, that we saw that last year with Schlesinger, right?
Yeah.
So,
Carson. Yep.
I
Well, I
mean,
just wrote about I wrote about a linebacker that's been projected by a lot of teams in the third round for the Brownies. Kyle Lewis is a nice linebacker from Pittsburgh, um, undersized, a little bit like Carson Schlesinger. Not projected to have maybe the numbers that, and no one would expect Carson Schlesinger to have the year that he did here in Cleveland coming in as a rookie, but he did. He had a phenomenal year.
yeah,
But I think the Browns definitely need a linebacker. I could see,
after losing Bush, yeah.
yeah. I mean, they got a good one back with the kid that they picked up from
Right,
Jets,
yeah, yeah,
Quincy Williams or whatever. But well, it'll be a fun, interesting. They started their voluntary workouts today.
yep.
And so saw some of the players coming into Berea, but we'll have more time. I'll have to have you back on. I need to talk to you more about the Guardians. So maybe we can do
Anytime,
that the next time. Uh, because you are
anytime.
a plethora of information, Bill. Like
John, you're too kind.
you are,
Oh,
I want to
stop it.
know,
Oh,
like when you're a
stop.
teacher, now I know that some people, you maybe mentioned you're a teacher now, but
Yep.
I would imagine, not knowing you personally that well, but I would imagine that as a math teacher or whatever, that you probably have stories that you probably can share during your days in the classroom, right? That you're a good storyteller to your students. I would imagine that's why you're a very good teacher. Is that a good guess?
Yeah, I do like to share stories with the kids, but a lot of the kids I have don't care about the stories.
No?
They're
Okay.
no, no. My kids are all about, hey, can we get him here today? And can we maybe get him to remember to bring all of his material with him today? So,
That's great.
so God bless him, but those who do like a good story, yeah, I try and give them. And I will tell you that the Jim Tomey story hit home with a lot of athletes because they
How
were
did
like,
you get that interview? I mean, did
you talk
Natalie
about
help you?
something strange. All right, so this is another good story, and then I'll keep it real short. We can
That's
make it
fine.
longer
Yeah.
another time. So my son was a senior at the University of Louisville. My youngest son, he is now at
Okay.
Indiana and at law school. This is year three. So
Wonderful.
so he's a
Congrats, Dad.
senior, and for my birthday present, he's like, Dad, I got you. We're going to go to the Louisville Slugger Museum where they were going to be giving out the Louisville Slugger Awards, and Jim
Yeah.
Tomey was scheduled to be there.
Oh my.
And it's like, oh, that'd be great, right? And so I've
Yeah.
never been there before, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's awesome, Aiden. Thank you so much, right? So Natalie,
Yeah.
I tell Natalie, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be going to the Louisville Slugger Museum,
Yeah.
and Tomey's going to be there, and she goes, Bill, I just got an email from them saying, would any one of us want to be there? And I'm like,
Holy
oh,
cow.
I'm gonna be there, Natalie. She's like, let me clear this. So she calls them up and they're like, yeah, sure. So I get a press pass.
Oh
So I'm
my.
able to go into the private room where they had the interviewing with all the press. And so I'm sitting there with a couple people from was it Louisville Courier, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
So there are a
Yeah.
whole bunch of people. Not one person from Cleveland
Yeah.
or Elyria or the East Side.
Yeah.
Nowhere. Nobody
Yeah.
who covers the Guardians came down for this.
Yeah.
So they were a little surprised. So I had the woman who was scheduling all this. She's like, "You're the only Cleveland reporter who is here." I looked at her. I'm like, "You're kidding me." She's like,
Yeah.
"No." She said a
Yeah.
lot of them just said, "No, we're not going to be down there for this." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow."
Right.
Um, so there was a session where Jim was talking about his relationship with the company and
Yeah.
how he'd share like if I was having trouble with a bat one time, there would be somebody who would come up and say, "Let me look at it." And
Yeah.
he's like, they're so I got to see all the different bats. Like there's this huge warehouse, and that there are slots full of bats just for special players. It's
Wow.
incredible. They have their
Wow.
own bats that are just sitting there, right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm telling you, John, it's really cool. So I'm sitting into there, and we're ready to do the interview process,
Yeah.
and so we're sitting there, and the gentleman, the president of the company, says, "Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to open it up for questions." And so this is my first. It's Jim Tomey. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
Hall of Famer, right?
Right.
I,
Right.
I mean, the only person I've ever interviewed before was Caleb Porter, who was the coach of the Columbus Crew. So I'm like, oh man, this is. So I'm looking around, and nobody's saying anything. So I raised my hand,
Yeah.
and I introduced myself, say who I'm with,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and I had the first six questions because no one else wanted to do anything. So I kept more
Yeah.
questions with Jim. So it was like he and I were
Oh
just
my
having this
gosh.
conversation between each other. It was awesome, John. It was just awesome.
When
So
was that? A couple years ago?
uh, I got my Jim Tomey bat back there too. So one of the other things you get is like you're there and Jim Tomey will sign a bat. So I have a
Oh my
bat that,
gosh.
yeah, that commemorates his Hall of
Oh,
Fame
that is
induction.
so my gosh, that's so
And
great.
then so he signed it and everything. And so I think it was 2022 or
So it
no
was the
23. I think it was
Louisville
23.
Sluggers Hall of Fame, or
Yeah,
you?
it is. So they give out their awards and stuff like that, but they
Yeah.
wanted to, they were enshrining Jim into their quote unquote Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
because he's also he's won the Silver Slugger Award how many times? Uh, I think five times or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and so he was the special star for that day, and so they took him in the back and showed them
Wow.
how they take a piece of wood and make it into a bat and everything, which you
Yeah.
kind of already knew, but I think it was just
Yeah.
for pictures. I
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to go back there though, John. That was a bummer. That would have been cool to follow that. I was hoping to do that piece, but
Oh, Jim Tomey
um,
was, I tell you, he was such a delight. And growing up watching him, he's such a superhero. I mean, Tomey's, his batting style, everything about what he did. I mean, those teams, have a lot of friends who are Guardians fans. I mean, we were reciting the 95 roster again today. I mean, if you're an Indians fan long time, that 95 lineup, or
yeah,
I mean, those teams in 95, 96, 97, uh, were certainly special. So, and you get to talk to one of those guys who's probably everybody's superhero.
awesome.
Oh,
It was just, and I remember him coming up with the Popeye forearms and everything else. And
nice guy. Everybody says he's just a nice guy. Is that your
oh,
takeaway was that,
his son is a really good baseball player too.
where
So
does
his
he
son,
play?
I think is he a senior in high school or is he a freshman?
Oh,
Oh
so he,
boy,
he could be coming up to the major leagues then.
possibly.
Uh,
Kid's pretty fast too. So he's
okay.
he's pretty much like a five tool
Where
kid, I
does
believe.
Tommy
But
live these days? Did you know where
I
Tommy
think he's still
lives?
Peoria. I think he's still in
Okay.
Peoria.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think he's Peoria still because that's. Um, I still can never, you look at all the jerseys that he wore. You're like, he was a
Yeah.
Dodger, like
Yeah.
he was
Oh
a
my gosh.
White Sox. Come on,
Oh,
really,
I know that
Jim?
sucked when yeah, I agree on
I
that
know,
end. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So I've been really blessed to have an opportunity to do a lot of stuff for Cleveland sports, and I tell you, I'm
Well,
looking forward to watching this soccer team with the Cleveland Forest Cities. That's going to be kind of cool.
yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good. And now down here in Columbus, we've got the Aviators UFL
That's
team.
right.
So that was
That's right.
kind of fun. They actually sent me. I mentioned that I worked for Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders, and they sent me some tickets the day of the game, which was nice. I wasn't able to go, but
Okay.
anyway, so we'll have to see what happens with that. But they got
Oh, we may
players
have to.
like.
We may have next time. We may have to meet up for one like that,
I
man.
think that would be really
I'd
good.
come
I
up for
know
that.
I actually offered the tickets to Rod, but Rod wasn't able to go either. So it's short notice. But
Our
anyway,
good
yeah,
buddy Rod
I'll
Bloom.
have to catch up with you. That's a definite. I have my stepdaughter and soon to be son-in-law. They live in Kettering,
Oh
also. I
wow.
don't know if she's works at the hospital there over in
Okay.
Kennerington, and so they've lived there for about a year and a half now. But so we make our way over there quite a bit.
Hey, next
We've
time.
got a new grandson too. So we're excited about that. So he's three
Yeah, we've
months
got
old.
we got four, and then we got another on the way. So
Oh, congratulations. Oh my God. You're going to have five. Wow.
it has been.
It's the
I
best
tell
thing in
you,
the world, isn't it, Bill?
John, it's so hard to explain to people. So one of my buddies from college just became a grandpa, and I told him, I said, your whole life will change because you're going to go from dad to
Yes.
granddad. And
Yes.
then you're gonna love your son, you're gonna love your daughter, you're gonna love your son-in-law, you're gonna love your daughter-in-law. But when you go and see them, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go to that grandbaby like, how are you doing, baby?
That's
That's good
right.
to see.
Exactly. Yes. It is a
Oh
great
yeah.
feeling.
Hi son, hi daughter-in-law, how you doing?
Right. Yeah.
Love you
How you
too.
guys doing? Yeah. We want to see the grandkid. Absolutely. Oh
Exactly.
my
But
gosh.
it's cool. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's
Well,
great.
Bill, thank you again for being part of our show today, part of the
Thank
Fanatical
you.
Owls Network, the Johnny Cleveland podcast. We'll be back next week. We've got lots of shows coming up. Rod Bloom with his Browns Blitz and his brother Jeff will be coming up later this week, so stay tuned to that. Also, I believe I want to shout out to um, our friend here who watches our show religiously. Thank you, Boam OH. He says, it's 1840. Michigan still sucks. Um, we talked. He also asked some questions about Freeling and Tate and Caleb Downs. We just talked about that too. So thank you again for following us. You can find us on YouTube, the X, and Facebook, and listen to us later on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We are there. Bill, again, thank you so much. We'll have to have you come back on soon.
Love it, John.
And
Thank you so much.
we'll talk to you again. Everybody,
Awesome.
take care. And as like I say on the end of my Johnny Cleveland podcast, keep smiling, everybody. See ya.